with news from across the Federation, spanning the region and covering the globe. This is the KyssFM SKN News Now Evening Edition, your one true source for news. And now your presenter.
Good evening, I'm Ebony Brandon. Today is Wednesday, it's the 1st of March 2017. This is the SKN News Now Evening Edition. These are headlines this evening. Nationally, a Sandy Point woman escapes with her life after gunmen opened fire on the vehicle she was traveling in. Regionally, the Caribbean Development Bank has applauded the government of Grenada for its fiscal reform efforts. And internationally, 2 women have been charged with killing the North Korean leader's brother. We've got the details of these stories and more straight ahead. Former Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Dr. Denzil Douglas, says that the recently released 2016 crime statistics clearly indicate that the efforts of the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force efforts to curb and resolve criminal activity have failed. Speaking yesterday afternoon with SKN News Now, former National Security Minister Douglas boasted his stance with the released statistics.
There has been a dramatic failure in the ability of the police to decrease crime. And this is shown not only in St. Kitts but also in Nevis. Overall, therefore, a failure in St. Kitts and Nevis. The overall detection of and conviction of those who have been engaged in criminal activity. We see, for example, a 68% failure rate in 2016 and a 32% detection rate only in 2016 in St. Kitts. This also is not good. We have a situation from the statistics released by the police that 48% detection failure has been seen in Nevis in 2016 and a 52% detection rate in Nevis in 2016. Overall, there seems to be a failure in the Federation with regard to detection rate, a 35% detection rate and a 65% failure rate, that is, in the Federation in 2016.
Dr. Douglas continued that the crime statistics provide further evidence that there is a disconnect between the sentiments of present Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, Dr. the Honourable Timothy Harris, and the reality of the situation in St. Kitts and Nevis.
This tells me that maybe the dismantling of several initiatives that were in place may not have yielded results. It tells me also that there is something fundamentally wrong, because with the Prime Minister, Minister of National Security, saying daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, that there is a tremendous improvement with regard to fighting crime in St. Kitts and Nevis. There is a disconnect with what the Prime Minister is saying and what
Dr. Douglas also noted that the extensive assistance provided to the police over the last 2 years appears to have had little to no impact on the efforts to reduce or control crime.
We also find a situation where, despite all of the assistance that has been provided to the police. Again, according to the Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, the assistance from Bramshill, the training, the equipment, the vehicles, the increased mobilization, the bringing in of the RSS, there seemed to be no serious impact that this has made in the criminal activity of St. Kitts and Nevis. And I personally believe that given the present state of mind of the Prime Minister, where he says that the buck stops with the police and not with him, it tells me very clearly that it is the politicization of the police force and the lack of a free hand being given to the police why we are seeing this serious continued threat to our safety and security here in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Meanwhile, a woman narrowly escaped death this morning when multiple gunshots were fired into the vehicle she was traveling in. The Sandy Point resident, identified as Jacqueline Buchanan, was rushed to the hospital for medical treatment. However, she was wounded during the incident. While the details remain unclear, what is known is that two masked assailants approached the vehicle in Mount Iber, Sandy Point, and opened fire at about 7:25 this morning. There were 3 other individuals reportedly in the vehicle at the time of the shooting, one of which was Buchanan's son. No one else was struck during the incident, and Buchanan is expected to recover fully from the wound to her upper arm. In other news, Labour Party caretaker for constituency number 8, Dr. Terence Drew, has decried the Team Unity Administration leader, Dr. the Honourable Timothy Harris's attempts to stifle free press. This afternoon, Dr. Drew said that the Prime Minister's actions over the past 2 years are tantamount to an attempt to consolidate power in the Federation.
I have been saying this over and over again. Every week I speak about the Freedom of Information Act. Every week I try to bring to the population that is vital, very important, beyond party politics, that the press and people who are in journalism and so forth have access to the information. If you don't have access to the information, it means therefore that there can be a consolidation of power and the government can take over the full reign of control of your country. We have seen that Dr. Timothy Harris has started already. Already he has put his family members in the top positions. Nepotism at its best. This is one of the steps that people take really to consolidate power. Now that he has gotten away with it, because those who are close to him are not condemning him for it and telling him that you cannot have your family members in these top positions, is called consolidation of power, which is the gateway to a dictatorship.
Drew accused the Team Unity government as well of restricting the public's access to information and remarked on the heavy reliance on social media networks as a source of information dissemination.
He's now taking it a bit further and saying that people should not listen to any opposing views to him. And that it's even worse than that, because he has closed off the information that comes from the government. And so if you want information, you have to go to Facebook, SKN Times, and Times Caribbean. Some months ago, almost a year ago, I remember some reporters got together and they said that they cannot get any information from the government. And that is why he has started now on a whole campaign using taxpayers' money. This statement that you hear from Dr. Timothy Harris is not in a unity party forum. It's in a forum that is paid by the taxpayers. That is the sickness about this type of action by this Prime Minister.
The Monetary Council of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, ECCB, the bank's highest decision-making body, will meet in St. Kitts tomorrow for its 87th such meeting. Governor of the ECCB, Timothy Antwine, will deliver to the council the report on monetary and credit conditions in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. The council is also expected to deliberate on matters relating to the financial stability and growth and development of the ECCB member states, including the report from the Committee on Bank Fees and Charges, proposed amendments to the Banking Act, and the Eastern Caribbean Partial Credit Guarantee Corporation Agreement. Following the meeting, Chairman of the ECCB Monetary Council and Council Member for Antigua and Barbuda, Prime Minister Gaston Brown, will present the communique of the meeting, after which he and other members of the Council will field questions from members of the media. The ECCB Monetary Council is comprised of the Ministers of Finance from the 8 member governments: Anguilla, Antigua and Barbuda, the Commonwealth of Dominica, Grenada, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Brittany Paula Peets, an 18-year-old McKnight resident, was detained at the Van-Saint-Marie International Airport on Friday, 24th February, on suspicion of possession of a controlled substance. Her arrest was the end result of a joint operation conducted by the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force and officers of Her Majesty's Customs and Excise Department. Peets was arrested after investigators discovered 2.5 kilos of cocaine in her luggage, making this the second major cocaine seizure of 2017. Following her arrest, she was charged with possession of cocaine with intent to supply, and importation of cocaine. It is likely that other charges will be filed based on charges from the Customs Service. Peets is expected to appear in court before a magistrate in Charlestown on Wednesday to answer the charges brought against her. Until then, the 18-year-old will remain in police custody. Finally, this evening in National Developments, the organizing committee of the St. Kitts Music Festival has announced the second wave of artists expected to perform at the 21st Annual St. Kitts Music Festival. International soca champion Aaron Voice St. Louis is among the artists listed to perform. Also slated to perform are Lyrical, Antigua and Barbuda's soca monarch King, Ricardo Drew, Teddyson John, Felisa Ross and Ed Robinson. The band Third World out of Jamaica is also scheduled to make an appearance during this year's festival. The first wave of artists was released during a media and corporate lunch of the festival on Monday, 30th January. The names revealed were Mavado, Jackyo, Goo Goo Dolls and Shabba Ranks. The final roster with the remaining performers is expected to be released very shortly. The St. Kitts Music Festival will be held at the Warner Cricket Stadium in Basse-Terre and will commence on Thursday 22nd through to Saturday 24th June 2017. Still to come in regional developments this evening, Bahamas Prime Minister Perry Christie is in hot water for making an obscene gesture at a public meeting. We'll give you the details in just a moment. The Barbados-based Caribbean Development Bank has applauded the Grenada government over measures implemented to rekindle the local economy. Both the CDB President, Dr. Warren Smith, and its Director of Economics, Justin Ram, have praised Grenada's decision to implement laws curbing spending. Also coming in for praise was Grenada's decision to pass fiscal responsibility legislation to control spending over the course of any given year. Ram and Dr. Smith made the remarks while addressing media practitioners from around the region during the annual CDB News Conference in Barbados late last week. Dr. Smith also recognized Grenada's decision to hold public consultations and monthly meetings with social partners on key national issues.
But I think you made an important point about when countries engage in reform. Reform sometimes is painful. Choices have to be made, difficult decisions have to be made. And therefore, there is the real possibility, in fact, there is the likelihood of resistance to reform. But I think your country is a very good example of the kind of inclusive way in which policy should be implemented. And I don't remember what is the term that your Prime Minister has used to characterize it, but it is a process of engagement with the public where, there are, I guess, town hall meetings would be a good term. There is opportunity presented for people at the grassroots level to hear the government officials speak to the reforms that are being carried out, talk about the implications of those reforms, and the people get an opportunity to let the government of the day and the officials who are involved in the reforms to hear from the horse's mouth how they are feeling about it. And I think that is a very good way in which to engage.
Bahamas Prime Minister Perry Christie has been on the receiving end of sharp criticism from the leader of the main opposition party, Dr. Hubert Minnis. Prime Minister Christie is under fire for making an obscene gesture during a political rally staged by his party.
Free National Movement leader Dr. Hubert Minnis is taking issue with Prime Minister the Right Honourable Perry Christie, who apparently threw up his middle finger during the joint PLP meeting in Fox Hill. He was reportedly responding to allegations that he owns a condominium property obtained through political impropriety. Dr. Minnis says the Prime Minister's apparent action shocked him.
His gesture was more than rude, it was obscene. His gesture was foul and has absolutely no place in the public domain. And our Prime Minister must know that regardless to where he is, he represents the Bahamas and should behave accordingly.
Scores of people took to the streets in front of the Guyana Revenue Authority, calling for the complete removal of value-added tax from private education. Royden James reports.
The Guyana Revenue Authority, GRA, was the center of attention when a group of persons led by businessman Roshan Khan protested against VAT on private education. The protest came on the heels of an intended announcement by President Granger to remove VAT on private education.
When the announcement comes, I will salute him and I will say appreciated, but I'm going to say that I'm not going to say thank you. I respect officials of authority, but I'm not going to say thank you because he didn't do that out of the kindness of his heart. He did that because of the people. Protests, students protesting and objections.
Only last week, School of the Nations submitted a petition to President Granger with more than 4,000 signatories calling for the removal of VAT on private education. One of those students from the school was also on the picket line.
I attend Nations University. I'm being affected by the VAT right now because my parents, they work hard to put me in school, and in this way I am being affected and they're being affected. I'm being affected by the prices, which is the 14%. I'm being affected, and I won't be able to afford my studies if this is not revoked.
Mr. Khan feels that if there were wider consultations with the people with regards to the value-added tax measures, things would have been different.
I am saying take back the 2%. Take back your 2%. It's like giving with your left hand and kicking with your right foot. That's my point. You're taking with the left hand, you're giving with the left hand, and you're kicking with the right foot. You follow me? You give the people 2% reduction in the VAT, but you VATted everything else, including, as far as they're concerned, even air.
The government, on a number of occasions, moved to explain in great detail their VAT measures. While the government has reduced VAT from 16% to 14%, the tax was added on a number of other items, including water. When the 16% VAT was first introduced under the presidency of Mr. Jagdeo, he came under fire from the then opposition party. The opposition had said then that 16% was too high. Only recently, President Granger told Nightly News on his public interest program that his administration will be reducing the VAT over the next few years until it reaches a standard which will be to the comfort of all Guyanese people.
Coming up next in international news, the search is on in Johannesburg for a little boy who fell into a sinkhole. We have the details in a moment. Efforts to find Richard Thola, the 5-year-old who fell down a mining silk hole in the Jerusalem shantytown in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg on Saturday, has continued for a 4th day. Angela Capola has more.
Mine rescue services and local emergency services team have been stabilizing the sinkhole for the last 2 days. And for a second time on Wednesday, they were ready to see if it was safe to mount a rescue operation. So a camera was deployed.
So as we're speaking now, we are busy with the setup. Then we will also be sending down a camera to do the search. And together it has got a gas monitor also, because that is one other challenge that we have as far as gases are concerned.
And then disaster struck. There were 2 rock falls in the hole and 5 large boulders were dislodged that blocked the hole, making it even more dangerous to mount a rescue mission. But not everyone was convinced that it was too dangerous to enter.
If they give me proper PPE, protective clothing, or everything, equipment with my guys, I can go down. It's not my first time. We're working in mines from Zim.
But the authorities are sticking by the rules and regulations. There was no chance that illegal miners, known as zamazamas, would be allowed into the hole.
We don't just put anybody inside the shaft without considering the safety aspect. So that has been taken into very deep consideration. As we said that now, massive rock falls happened. And on this shaft itself, there was no illegal activities that took place prior to this incident happening.
At about 2 o'clock, the rescue team abandoned the search after the distraught mother and father were called in and briefed by the rescue team leader.
It doesn't seem like it's good news for the family of the youngster that slipped into this hole on Saturday. We're going to have to wait and see, but it does seem like it's becoming a recovery mission now.
Prosecutors in Malaysia have charged 2 female suspects with the murder of Kim Jong-nam, the half-brother of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. The women have been accused of poisoning him with VX nerve agent. The Indonesian and Vietnamese nationals say they believed they were involved in a prank. Florence Louis reports from Sepang.
They were brought to court in a police convoy accompanied by a team of special forces officers. Duan Thi Huong, a Vietnamese woman, and Siti Aisyah, an Indonesian mother of 1, have been charged with the murder of Kim Chol. That's the name on Kim Jong-nam's passport.
She was perfectly all right and she was calm. Of course, she definitely will be stressed because she's facing a death penalty.
The 2 women are alleged to have smeared VX nerve agent, a banned chemical weapon, on Kim's face. The act was captured by CCTV, and the footage was obtained by Japanese broadcaster Fuji TV. The women have told diplomats from their respective embassies that they thought they were taking part in a TV prank show. This case has generated so much publicity that defense lawyers are concerned about their clients' right to a fair trial.
Gag order was granted, yeah?
This is against who?
The gag order is against the police and against any potential witnesses to refrain from making public statements that have a tendency to incriminate her or have a tendency to compromise on her defense.
Malaysian police have implicated 8 North Koreans in the killing. They're seeking to question 2 men, one of whom is an embassy official in Kuala Lumpur, and have asked Interpol to put out an alert for 4 others, who are now thought to have returned to Pyongyang. 1 suspect has been detained, while another is still at large.
The remand order for the 3rd suspect, a North Korean who's already in police custody, ends on Saturday. So if prosecutors don't charge him by then, he'll be released.
As for the 2 female suspects, they'll remain in prison under tight security until their trial is over.
Europe's tallest and most active volcano has erupted for the first time in 2 years. Lava spewing from Mount Etna provided spectacular views to those who were able to see it. The report is by Emily McNally.
This is Europe's most active volcano. Mount Etna, based on the Italian island of Sicily, has erupted for the first time this year. It created spectacular viewing overnight as orange fountains of lava could be seen in the city of Catania. Although it continues to spew lava, experts say that there is currently no danger to the towns surrounding the mountain slopes. The nearby airport at Catania, which is just over 30 miles from Mount Etna, has remained open, but authorities have said that they are tracking the ash cloud, which can cause disruption to air traffic control. Mount Etna is one of the world's most active volcanoes, and with a height of 3,330 metres, has been known to erupt several times a year. but its last major eruption was in 1992. It's not yet known how long the volcanic eruptions will last for, whether it's days or weeks, but for now authorities say that there is no danger to personal property or local residents.
And that wraps up our international developments. Now for a recap of our top stories. Nationally, a Sandy Point woman has escaped with her life after gunmen opened fire on the vehicle she was traveling in this morning. Regionally, the Caribbean Development Bank has applauded the government of Grenada for its fiscal reform efforts, and internationally, 2 women have been charged with the killing of North Korea's leader's brother. Stay with us till to come this evening's Sports Zone. Tonight in Sports Zone, Zimbabwe's cricketers and administrators are under fire for the team's poor performance. We have the details in just a bit. In cricket, it doesn't get much worse for a test-playing nation than to lose an associate team, but it's been doubly painful for Zimbabwe. Not only have they lost one international series to Afghanistan on home soil, but they did so in a most humiliating fashion. The hosts were bowled out for a paltry 54 in the final game of the 5-match series on Sunday. Now, both the players and administrators are under fire for the team's poor performance.
After a memorable fight back to level the series at 2-2, hopes were high that Zimbabwe's misfiring chevrons were finally going to come right. But Sunday's decider was forgettable. A tale of dropped catches and loose bowling was capped by one of the worst batting performances in Zimbabwean history. Chasing a rain-adjusted total of 161 from 22 overs, the hosts were bowled out for 54 in just 13.5 overs. Sunday's loss marks arguably the lowest point in Zimbabwean cricket history and the culmination of a series of problems that have burdened the game. But even that isn't enough to absolve Sunday's collapse.
You can't have a poor performance be bowled out for 50 and then blame it on administration. So yes, they have challenges, and yes, administration, I doubt, would not take some of the blame because there are some problems there. But as a professional sportsman, which I think that's where they're probably struggling, is that the ability that when it's game time, is take everything else out of your mind. You are here to do a job. The point for me is that these players are coming out and either their minds are on something else or they just don't understand what it takes to be a professional sportsman.
Cricket fans here are frustrated and are searching for answers, but acknowledge there might be more pain still to come.
Our development at the base of the pyramid is decent, but then there is no filtering system going up to the elite level. So consequently, what we then have is we've got too many guys playing first-class cricket, and easily so. Therefore, they get a look into the national team, but are they the cream of the crop? Have they gone through the mill to be at the best level that they can be? No. We need to relook the structures. We've got at least 6 to 10 years in the wilderness. That we must make peace with and begin to work towards getting ourselves out of this hole within that particular period.
Others are calling for a more radical shake-up.
There's got to be a lot more soul-searching. I said many years ago, and I got myself into a little bit of trouble, the answer for Zimbabwe cricket, in my opinion, is make it an amateur sport. Let's see who wants to play cricket. Because when you're not getting paid to play, and the dangle of the carrot is that if you can prove to me that you deserve a contract, then there's a different scenario.
Matches against Ireland and the Netherlands are planned later this year, giving Zimbabwe more competition from perceived minnows of the game. Those fixtures will present an opportunity for the Southern African nation to redeem itself and restore some semblance of order to the cricket hierarchy.
Former Olympic swimmer Michael Phelps has told Congress that he never felt any competition outside the United States in which he participated was free of performance-enhancing drugs. We get more in this report.
Former Olympic swimmer Michael Phelps has told Congress that he never felt any competition outside the United States in which he participated was free of performance-enhancing drugs. Phelps is the most decorated Olympian of all time with a total of 28 medals from 4 Olympic Games, and he was testifying in front of the House of Representatives Committee on Energy and Finance, which is holding hearings on ways to improve the international anti-doping system. Now, world sport has been hit by a rash of doping scandals in recent times, notably with the banning of Russian athletes from the Rio Games.
Can't describe how frustrating it is to see other athletes break through performance barriers in unrealistic timeframes, knowing what I had to do to go through that. I watched how this affected my teammates as well. Even the suspicion of doping is disillusioning for clean athletes. To believe in yourself through sport, you need to be able to believe in the system that safeguards clean sport and fair play. All athletes must be held to the same standards, which need to be implemented and enforced with consistency and independence.
Pele once famously predicted an African country would win the World Cup before the year 2000. The Brazilian football legend may have got that forecast wrong, but young players from the continent are excelling. Converting junior success into something similar to senior level is one of the big challenges now facing African football. Andy Richards reports.
This Cup of Nations is about much more than regional rivalry. It will also decide which African teams go to the Under-20 World Cup. And history would suggest Zambian fans are getting an early look at many of the players who'll stand out at that tournament. When it comes to age group football, Africa has few equals. In Zambia's capital, Lusaka, young players train in the hope they too can one day make it to the highest level.
They know that some of these players that we are watching today, playing high-profile football, be it, from Ghana, Nigeria, they are coming from poor backgrounds. Even here in Zambia, we have players that came from very, very poor backgrounds, and today they are playing good football.
At under-17 level, Africa is the dominant global force. Nigeria alone have won 3 of the last 5 World Cup finals. And there's been big success at under-20 level. Ghana won the world title in 2009, and in 2015, Mali and Senegal reached the semi-finals. But at senior level, no African team has ever got beyond the quarter-finals at a World Cup. Former Zambian international Tennant Chilumba played his club football in Africa, Asia and Europe. He says the problems for national sides can start when the players leave their hometown teams and get used to different training cultures.
When you are coaching the junior team, all the players that are from the local league, you can monitor them, you can look at their performance, you can assemble a good team. Unlike in the senior team, you only coach the player when he joined the team maybe for 3 days. So it's quite difficult.
Many seasoned African football observers believe attitudes can also change as a player's career progresses abroad.
Under 17 and under 20 level, the players are looking to make a name for themselves. They are wearing the shade of their nations with a lot of pride because they are not big stars yet. But when they begin getting these big monies, they are in Spain, they are in England, they are in Italy, it changes the trajectory of how they respond to call-ups to the national team and eventually even how they perform when they're with the national teams.
The players competing at this Cup of Nations, the latest generation, with the chance to prove this is the beginning and not the peak of their national endeavours.
And that brings us to an end of this evening's edition of SKN News Now. On behalf of the entire team here at KyssFM, I'm Ebony Brandon wishing you a very pleasant evening. Goodbye.